and you gonna murder this one and murder that one. Talking all that bullshit. I'm gonna put it to you like this, yo.
This is for the nerds, this is for the brainiacs, this what we deserve. Go ahead and play it back, you ain't gonna touch me, you not gonna do nothing, you are not above me. I bet you wish you was me, I know it, I know.
What's up, everybody? Wow, you cut to me a little. You really fucked me there, Limo.
I said I'm muting mics and then I
just click the pedal. You just fucking caught me with my pants down here.
Damn.
I was trying.
I'm muting.
My foot spazzed out.
Right.
You can't let the person who stims the most be the switcher.
Coming in hot.
I mean, Jesus, criminy. All right, guys. Criminy. You know, I'm trying to keep it clean here. We're the first 5 minutes now. Thanks
Gosh
to
darn it.
Gosh darn it, you know.
Criminy River.
Criminy River. We have a great show for you guys today. If you're not
If you're an audio listener.
Yeah, if you're an audio listener, I apologize. I highly suggest heading to YouTube, maybe liking, subscribing, you know, leaving a comment below.
Oh, you want me to do that, huh?
Yeah,
You want me to say
YouTube.com/like
like and subscribe? I got that.
Yeah.
Oh, nope.
Oh, happy birthday to Marley! Nikki, you still don't got
crushing
it.
it.
No, you
Crushing it.
Her shot is insanely bright.
no, she looks great.
No, I look great.
I think it looks great. I'm looking at it right here,
Yeah, look at your
but
shot.
you did
Look at
just.
us. We look good. We're bright.
Okay,
You guys are a little bit bright.
Yeah, we're
look-
hot.
I look
coming
orange.
in real
Bring it down
hot.
a
That's
little
okay.
bit.
Look, we match. We matched yesterday, Burke, and now we matched again today. I think we should just color coordinate all the time. What do you think, Landon?
I think so.
Yeah, let's see those guns.
Yeah, it looks good together.
Let's see those guns.
I'm stretching.
All right, not to play backseat driver here, but you still have your lower third up, and you still haven't given me the like, comment, and subscribe.
No, I don't. Actually, look at this. I have like and subscribe, asshole. I found it while you were yapping away about being color coordinated.
Keep
call
yapping,
that,
King.
They call that vamping in the business.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
There's your lower third, ass fuck.
It's still up. It's still rocking.
Yeah, that's because keep shouting out Matt Berkey every time
You
it
know
cuts
what?
to.
You know what, Nikki? I will say I absolutely love you for this backsplash.
Thank
These
you.
lights are so great. I look like
a rock star.
like a starburst.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little
A Star
pink,
is
a little
born.
blue. That's right.
You always wanted to be a little starburst.
You know me.
He does love the fruity
We're
candy.
high
All
from
right,
being
relax.
here all day.
It's been a long academy. We've been having a great time. We actually have a
it's
hand
amazing.
from today's academy that Nikki played in the muck segment, which we'll get to in a
bullied.
little bit. But before we get to that, we have some lighthearted news to catch up on. It is, in fact, Marley Sprague's birthday today. Happy 33.
33. That's supposed to be the
23.
good year.
That's right. She self-reported. I'm not outing anything.
No,
so
great.
big shout out to friend of the pod, Marley Sprague.
That's
we
a master
appreciate you.
number.
Happy birthday.
Happy
birthday,
Marley.
Marley.
Chauncey says happy
That's
birthday.
right. We've reinstated the Chauncey photo. Okay, come on, Nikki.
What?
What are you doing?
Like and subscribe.
Okay, but you got to lose one of the two.
I don't know. They need to know Matt Berkey wants you to like and subscribe.
Come on, keep it professional.
I thought you
know?
said that was only on my shot.
I thought it was too, but here we are.
Okay,
you know,
here we are. So I didn't know.
Oh, well,
I'm the asshole. Okay.
I mean, you click the eyeballs.
I guess everyone has one.
Okay, well, there's a little story behind this. Marley gave this to me as a gift, which I greatly appreciated since she stole her son and took him home. But, you know, I'm not going to name names, but maybe somebody whose name rhymes with taco walked by one day and just smashed it to oblivion.
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 Slytherin.
Oblivion?
Oblivion.
Oblivion.
Slytherin.
Wait, give me a break.
It rhymes with topo, not
Yeah.
taco.
Taco?
When you said taco, I'm like, who's that?
Guapo taco? Come on.
No, that doesn't
No,
rhyme.
that
That's
doesn't
fucking
rhyme.
it's like rhyming orange.
You flopped, though.
Can't rhyme orange either. Yeah.
Eminem
I was like,
can rhyme
I was
orange.
like, we gotta Paco in here somewhere?
we have Paco.
Eminem
writing
rhymes
the ones
orange.
and twos.
Would you take off the lower
I'm
third?
working on it.
No, keep
I'm working
'em.
on it.
We need people to, follow us.
And Lamanna, open your eyes while we're.
It's got a lot of notes for us.
Oh man, I've been staring at a screen for so damn long.
We both look
graphics
orange.
bro.
Graphics. I am graphics bro.
We look orange.
No, you don't. Why do you think you're seeing something different than me?
We look bright.
We're bright. We're a little bright.
I think
It's
you guys
okay.
look great.
I think I look fine.
I think you look fantastic.
This is great for the audio listeners.
These colors are nice on us.
Well, if this doesn't incentivize them to get to YouTube, I don't really know what will. Okay.
Hey, who's that talking right now?
Who lives in a pineapple under the sea?
Matthew Berkey.
Nice team. Nice work.
He is in Vegas Academy, is he?
Subscribe.
Oh man, I would have thought we'd start a podcast just so we could have somebody run the switcher that trolls nonstop.
Yep.
Guapo, come home soon, man. I miss you.
Need you.
If getting better at poker is something you wish, Matthew Berkey, get to the academy. Stop playing like a fish.
He's so proud of himself, and she's just hitting him with the yada yada.
Subscribe. Let's go.
Can we get a subscribe train going, team?
Get the hype
go.
train popping.
The hype
Yes.
train is real. All right,
I mean, if you don't subscribe after that, who are you?
I
really?
Who are you
completely
even?
agree.
I'm
at this
surprised
point.
Nikki's foot can even reach the pedal.
Hey,
Barely.
eat a dick. Eat a dick.
I'm just happy she's going to her shot every once in a while. Yesterday, she just like stayed on me and Brian while she was telling a story, and we're just like,
Yeah.
That's-
She was afraid that she wouldn't be able to get back to us.
Yeah,
I was
understand.
scared to get back.
It went,
Look, I took away my lower third.
It went a
Hey, there
little
you
rogue.
go.
Are you
Not
happy,
bad.
Papa?
you look great. The shot looks amazing. You're
Like
killing
and
it over there.
subscribe.
All right, we have a couple other things of news and note. Right after we report on Ethan having the biggest downswing of his career, possibly retiring from
He
poker
does the most
forever.
rampage thing ever.
Yeah, he just goes to Montreal and chops the fucking 1500 GG event for
Why
160K. Why not? Him and Baruzzi, shout out to the Rooster man himself.
Rooster
Or is he
Brewster.
Rooster or Jason? I'm not really sure how that works. It's Baruzzi and Ponikovs, right?
Yeah.
And they're both Rooster men.
No, I think Bruzy is the Rooster man.
He's the cockadoodle-doo.
Yeah, he's the lead
Okay.
rooster. He's the lead apostle for the
he's,
Rooster
okay,
God.
so he's the cock master,
Yeah.
but Ponikovs is like, cock master adjacent.
Yeah, he's like the bishop.
Right. Okay. Oh, well, I'm sorry. Where does bishops come into play?
Like cardinals and bishops. It's like it's a religion.
What does this have to do with the cock?
This is the Rooster God.
Well, let me tell you, Mark.
Someone break it down for me.
Brian's got you. All right, take it away, Brian.
No, I was trying to think of that movie from the Boston Globe movie.
Oh yeah, the one with Michael Keaton.
No.
The one about the
Is Michael Keaton in it?
yeah, the one about the priest, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Spotlight.
Right, Spotlight.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah,
He was in it, right?
maybe.
I'm pretty sure.
Never saw it.
Fellow Yinzer, shout out to Michael Keaton.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna spend the next 20 minutes talking about Yinzers that I enjoy. But no, shout out to Rampage. He cut right into that 500K downswing, picked up a nice 150 ball yesterday, 160, something like that.
Yeah.
Looks like he chopped it with Baruzzi, so nice day for both of them. It's always good to pick up a big
Nice
Monday
to get
score.
like a third of it back.
No big deal.
Immediately.
Right after I say like, when you only play high stakes a little bit and you lose $500,000, it's really hard.
Mm-hmm.
Because how do you get it back?
Well, that's how.
Well, you fly across
You
the country
sun run.
and you fucking sun run a tournament.
Yeah.
No big deal. I think that he has like some special sauce that we all need to be more privy to and just
He
like tap into.
manifests.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Would you tell me a little more? You got some crystals or stones?
Well, when you're trying to manifest things, you have to like and subscribe. And
She's going to manifest
you
us
think,
like double our subscription
Right.
Yeah.
subscribers in the next week.
Mhm.
you gotta have like a humorous attitude about yourself.
I'm headed to Arizona on Friday. Should I swing by Sedona? Would you like anything? while I'm in
Yeah,
the
there's a lot
neighborhood?
of crystals
Yeah.
you need to pick up.
You want me to head to the Vortex?
Definitely.
I can swing by the Vortex if you like.
Well,
Have you been to the Vortex?
There's multiple vortexes.
Well, there's one specific
Yeah,
one.
which
and
vortex are you talking about?
Okay, so there seems to be one specific one. It happens to just be right smack dead in the middle of where they sell all of the bullshit.
Okay, that is not the actual where the vortex is. That's the
Oh.
vortex store.
Oh, right.
There's actually like 3 different vortexes in Sedona. I know this because I went on a tour.
Oh, tell me more about the
It was
Vortex.
a 3-hour tour.
Can't believe you made it out alive.
I did.
Tell me
yes.
about these vortexes. What makes them so special?
Apparently they have certain kinds of energy.
Yeah, the energy fields.
Right, and this
right.
guy walks
Right.
around with these like this little sticks, and he's like,
Oh,
look.
the sticks.
Yeah, and he's like little metal sticks. He's like, when I walk over here, nothing happens. Then
right.
I walk here, they magically go together.
Oh, yeah,
And I'm like,
yeah.
oh, look at that. You definitely didn't do that with your fingers. Like, yeah.
You know what that reminds me of is those special bracelets that they give you. Where they have you hold your arms out to the side, and then they just very easily push them down. But they say, "Oh, this magnetic bracelet."
Then they can't push them down.
Yeah, it'll just like clear your chakra up and align everything. You put it on, and then they give it to golfers. They're like, your golf swing will be next level, and then you put your arms out, and they're like, "Whoa, you're so strong."
You guys believe a lot of crazy shit. You need to reel it back.
Yeah.
Snap back to reality, please.
I love Sedona.
Back to reality.
Great place.
It is. A great
Almost
place.
got him to go to song, but
I
he doesn't know the words.
I couldn't remember the next line.
There goes
Sorry.
gravity.
Oops,
Choke.
it goes gravity.
Yeah, it's my least favorite Eminem song by a very big long shot.
I kind of agree with you.
It's
Silverblade.
Kind of.
Yeah,
well, that's because we both like The Way I Am,
that's true.
which is
Do
very.
we like the way you
I
are?
like Till I Collapse.
We don't.
Till I Collapse is hard as fuck.
Yeah, that's my favorite song.
I like
Yeah.
Till I
I mean, that's my favorite like song that made the radio. The Way I Am, I think, is my favorite overall.
Yeah.
But it's like sick.
'Cause
Like
you are
actually,
the way
like
you are.
well, it's actually like a deranged song.
Yeah.
Like it really just. It's one step below like all the.
zigzags in this bag with this weed. It gives me the shit need.
Why is the camera on me?
Let her cook.
Yeah.
You're gonna cook.
She didn't want to cook on air.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, okay.
Because then they'll use that clip of me and they'll be like, look how cringe Nikki is.
Right.
Now you can't.
Oh, well, we get it. One final news and note is the Poker Go. What are they calling it? Is it the warm up?
It's the kickoff.
The kickoff. Okay, so some warm up adjacent.
Adjacent.
So let me get this right. They went from the warm up to the kickoff.
They went from the last chance to the kickoff.
Oh, right, the last chance to the kickoff
Yeah.
with no
Seems like
time,
they're going
no time off
backwards.
in between.
Not really. It was like a week.
Fascinating. Okay. Anyway, we've kicked things off apparently with a 5K series. The final. Today was Tuesday was the final
10K.
5K. No.
10.
Oh.
The last thing of the turn.
Oh, they
the
upped
series.
it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it looks like the Foxons had made a bit of a run, and both made a final table in said 10K. Now, the last time they made a final table together that I recall was Venetian Gate, where they were accused of soft playing. And I got to tell you, I don't think there was any soft playing taking place here.
No.
We saw violence, a little Foxon on Foxon violence.
Yep. So Krissy's got the queens.
Yep.
And Alex got the aces.
You got the aces, the birds, if you will.
That's the best hand you can have in poker.
Yeah, we call them the birds.
People that don't know.
The American Airlines.
American
American Airlines. Yep.
I think that's why they're the birds. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But yeah,
and
so
Andy.
eventually they're going to get all in. Now there was a point where the producer assumed that they were going to collude, and they had Alex folding the aces. That actually comes up on the graphics here.
Really? That's amazing.
But I think he's just a little bit of a little troll. Obviously, he's not folding, and
it could have been a slip of the finger. I've done that many times.
Yeah, don't want to play spoiler or anything, but we're going to find a queen ball right on this flop. What's the matter,
I just
Landon?
don't think you jam queens here.
Here's like wait,
I think you just click it. You just go 410.
Well, maybe she thought her husband would call her
flop.
late. I don't know. Maybe she didn't mind if he, doesn't stack off to her in this spot. Like, what do you want, man? They know each other intimately.
I love that it says monkey tail.
She knows his exact betting styles too.
Right. Obviously, he has aces.
I mean, he picks up outs.
Does pick up outs.
I like her sweatshirt.
Unfortunately, I do too. Actually, I think I have a T-shirt in whatever that brand is.
Nice.
It's like the heart with the eyes
Machino?
on it. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah. I have one gray T-shirt.
I don't think hers is that though, because it has the heart has eyes on the Machino.
You're right.
Yeah, there's no eyes here.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well,
This has been
I
landing
tried.
with fashion.
Oh, I love that.
I love when Landon
Go,
chimes in with fashion.
Krissy.
So I'm not sure. Do we have an update of how this ended up?
I think she won.
Okay.
I think D-Negs got second, Sam Laskowitz got third, Zobi in fourth.
I can look really quick.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, so it does seem like she won. 160. Yeah, she beat D-Negs heads up for 165,000.
Wow.
Good for Krissy B.
This one.
Also collects 330 PGT points.
I don't know what it is, but we'll find out.
Here we go.
450. I've got. Oh, then I must have
Paint and a 4 across.
All right.
9. Yeah.
King 9
450
versus
this time.
Jack 6.
Okay.
Negreanu, a
40% is a
favorite here
lot.
to double up.
Yeah.
And that's the problem
Get
with
some
how big these
spades,
blinds
but
are.
not too many.
He just doubled up to $1 million, and now he can double up to $1 million again. So sort of stuck in neutral. He's going to need a run of double ups, and here's the flop. Oh, Jack in the middle there. And Foxen now 2 cards away from winning this event. Daniel Negreanu looking for a king and a king only, or
We can leave early.
backdoor cards to make a straight. Turn card.
Calls for the 10.
10. That gives him a ton of outs.
7. Queen, king. That's all. Easy peasy.
7, queen, king, 11 outs for Negreanu. He's going to need to hit. Kristen Foxen 1 card away from taking it down. River card.
9.
The 9 of diamonds.
Good game.
Again, you
Foxen
played great.
Thank you. You too.
fun.
Wins it.
I ran amazing.
Any chance the mics were muted?
No. No.
Oh, okay, so Landon's just fucking gulping in the mic.
Oh, I didn't.
I shot him daggers.
How about Negreanu though? Like playing the quality over quantity thing
Seems to be working well.
Yeah, I'm
I mean,
actually really happy for him.
Yeah, I mean it's not complete
Love that
anecdote,
for him.
I
or
love that for him.
it's not like total anecdote or a sample size of 5, but that's okay.
Why is he so grumpy? Just be happy for people.
I'm not happy.
Being-
I'm not happy nor
Having
unhappy.
Good runs after making
You're
a declarative
completely
statement.
indifferent.
I'm totally indifferent. I think that it's.
You're running 0 EV right now.
I just think it's meaningless. Like quantity, quality. Like whatever helps you play well, man.
We add
you know?
meaning to life, Berkey.
I used to think that way. I did, Nikki.
Yeah.
Once upon a time.
That's when
yeah.
you're still alive inside.
I don't know if it was alive. I don't know if it was me being alive inside so much as it was me.
Youthful exuberance.
Maybe a little bit of that. Maybe a little bit of thinking that like I lived somehow above the fray of everybody else, which gave me more control.
Yeah. Okay.
And then you play a game of high variance for 20 fucking years, and you just realize, oh yeah, nothing you do matters, man, except for the buttons that you click whenever the money goes in the middle. Like all that matters is the decisions you make, whether or not they're plus EV, whether or not they're correct.
He's pressing high quality buttons.
Yeah. So I mean, honestly, like this.
That's right. Like and subscribe.
This is probably. God damn it! I'm getting trolled so hard.
It's so good.
It's probably a conversation like worth touching on since we got some time to vamp here a bit. What are your guys' thoughts of quality over quantity?
I like it personally.
For what reasons?
Okay, so it feels good when it's a small sample size and I won a majority of it.
What about when the inverse happens?
Okay, so I'll give an example, I guess, and this is honest. I mean, I am very, very self-aware that this is like completely anecdotal and very small sample size. But not last year, but 2022, my first WSOP series, I had only played like 20 live tournaments at that point, and I final tabled 5 of them, and then the 5th one being the WSOP bracelet final table. And it was huge scores, and I was like, whoa, so fun. And then I played like a bunch of tournaments, but more poker than I've ever played in the entire time I had ever played poker. And I just felt exhausted. It took away the fun part of it for me. Not just like because I busted a lot and there was like a lot more like of the downside of variance, but also just because I didn't feel good. Like I wasn't having fun. And I think that the fun aspect, and that's why when people are like, are you gonna go pro or whatever? I don't know if I would have fun. Yeah, like they're like, are you trying to be a pro poker player? And I don't know, but I don't really think I would have fun if I had to play a really high volume and knew that was like the way statistically that you beat the odds and like
Well, it's not even about beating the odds or anything like that, right? Like I for what it's worth. By the way, I wholeheartedly agree. Like, as somebody if you're playing like recreationally or you're in Negreanu's shoes where the money isn't important, I think the way that you spend your time is so much more critical than like the return that you get.
The value in time versus value in money and win rate.
Yeah. The actual hourly that you're making is way less important than the quality of that you're getting in return for the time spent. But I think it's a very privileged position to be in. And I think that when you frame it the way Daniel did, in the sense that like he's implying that there's weight to the notion of finding the sweet spot with volume versus quality of play. All he's basically admitting is that at some point his game deteriorates. And that's very, very self-aware and very important as a professional to understand. But our job is not to kind of acknowledge a flaw and then just like turn our back to it and like find the Band-Aid, which is just like play less, right? It would be like basically figuring out that you're heavily imbalanced facing river bets. And so what you do is just go all in on the turn more, right? Like, because you just like fold too often to river bets, that type of thing. Like, that's not the proper correction. Like, sure, it no longer allows you to overfold the river bets, but like now all of a sudden you're creating a strategy that's just like harmful to you in other positions or other nodes of the game tree. Or, another good example would be like, that would be like saying like, if you're a losing player, playing less will cost you like your bottom line will increase. I'm like, yeah, of course that's true, right? Like, you just have less opportunity to lose.
So you think the solution's more finding balance in like the work-life energy flow, or what?
I think we always have to push on our shortcomings, right? So in the past, and even to today, I'm not a huge volume guy in the sense that live is always just going to be low volume by comparison, right? Like you'll never reach a statistical significance with the sample that you're able to put in. So it really is about finding and striking a balance between the amount of hours spent and the return that you're trying to accrue. But Daniel's expectations are incredibly high. So he's looking for very large return with very minimal, I don't want to say effort, but very minimal volume spent, right?
It's the new small ball strategy.
Yeah. And
Small,
it's like
small tournament entry.
Right.
For big payoff.
Right. And it's like, it works if you sun run. But if you sun run, it won't matter how many tournaments you played, right? Like if you're sun running, playing more tournaments is just going to yield more results.
I mean, if you're in a better like headspace, does that probably has something to do with it too, right? If he's not like just grinding nonstop, where he's just like, I don't want to play today, or I'm not in the right mood to play. But now when he like limits his volume, he's like ready to go, feeling good, rested, and he's gonna play like he has maybe he's not gonna play his A game every time, but he has a better chance to play his A game.
He's at least gonna believe he's playing his A game more,
right? And that that's worth something.
I agree. I think all of that stuff's worth something. I think that speaks to what I was talking to, where you have to like once you find a blind spot or I guess like a weakness of your own, you need to build a callus around it, rather than trying to just Band-Aid over it, right? So if you recognize that you fall off from putting in too much volume, or you recognize that you get bored, or that you don't try as hard, you get lazy with your decisions, whatever the case may be, the answer, in my opinion, is not to play less. It's not to reduce your time at the table. It's to find ways to become as passionate on the 1,000th hand dealt to you as you were on hand one, right? And right now, Daniel's answer for that is time away. Abstinence makes the heart grow fonder, right?
Abstinence.
What did I say? Abstinence?
Yes.
Absence. No.
Well, abstinence.
I was correct. It's abstinence.
It's absence.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking about no sex.
Yes, that's
That would be
abstinence.
abstinence.
Yes. Abstinence makes the heart grow fonder.
Make something grow.
It's a.
That's not a dad joke. That's a rad
It's not
joke.
even meant to be a joke. I'm not pulling it out of thin air. This is like a high school fucking like dare type of program.
The quote is
Yeah, but the play on the quote is abstinence makes the
I
heart
never
grow
knew
fonder.
that. This is the
Really,
quote.
that was an actual thing.
It was like a STD awareness
shit
type of after school schedule.
I believe you. I just
Is he
don't remember
cooking?
that.
I only remember because for whatever reason, we had a magnet on the refrigerator that
It says abstinence makes the heart grow
yeah,
fonder.
Apparently.
it was because my grandparents were
Abstinence
Catholic.
makes the heart on grow fonder.
My grandparents were Catholic. They believed
Subscribe.
in no sex until marriage. Anyway,
I get what you're saying.
yeah, the in this instance, I absolutely mean abstinence because playing is the thing that like.
Absolutely.
Well, playing is like the activity that we derive pleasure from, similar to sex. And it does correlate in that regard. Like,
all right, bro.
If you're fucking every day, Sunday isn't as good as the previous Sunday was.
I think bro's
right?
projecting.
What am I projecting?
A lot of single angst energy. Do you think there's any merit though
You should have put the like, subscribe right in the middle of that.
if this fucking thing wasn't so trippy?
Him on him.
It's too late. The moment
Well,
passed.
anyway, the moment passed.
Yes.
Do you think there's any merit though to like finding flow state? Because like I think that burnout is a real thing, and I can only compare it to I was being a YouTube grinder for so many years, where I was putting out 5 days a week content and not live, so there was a lot of editing involved and like working through that. But when you do it every day and sometimes you're not feeling it, and it's a creative thing, burnout happens, and your audience can tell you're not putting out as quality of videos as you were. I mean, you could be less precious about it because you're putting on high frequency, so you could be less precious about it. But there's something in your like soul that like kind of dies a little bit, and I feel like there's a balance of volume that you can put in that like you achieve flow state and you're putting out quality work consistently because you're not burning the candle at both ends. Do you think there's like any merit to that?
Well, I think like you're comparing a little bit of apples to oranges. Like, I think poker in its, fully unlocked state is both an art and a science. But I think at the level that we currently understand it, it's far more science than art. And the people who try to be artists and paint, by throwing paint against the canvas,
they lose $1 million playing heads up.
Maybe. I forgot that he was the artist.
There you go.
But the thing is it's not that there's nothing to that. It's just, if you want to make the most amount of money, like, you just get technically good at the game. Like, Landon's never going to burn out from a mechanical sense.
No.
And what I mean,
I'm not going to burn out from 2E sizes.
Yeah, like what I mean by that is it's not that he's going to play perfectly or mistake free all the time, but he's not going to make rash emotional decisions because he's pre-programmed to just do what the sim wants him to do.
But do you believe in the right brain, left brain stuff?
I'm not void of
emotion. Yeah, and I think that kind of like cuts out what type of player you're going to be. And look, this is coming from somebody who's not like super technical whenever it comes to the way that I certainly paint with a broad brush when it comes to this, but I also chose a discipline that allows me to in super deep state cash or super deep stat cash rather. When you're playing tournaments, like, it's just the same repetitive thing over and over again, right? It's
the losing part.
Well, not just the losing part, but also the flow of the tournament. It's 100 big blinds to start, 50 big blind average a third of the way through, 30 big blind average halfway through, and then maybe like 20 big blind average as you approach the final table. So it's like the phases of the event are the exact same. Where you fall in line as far as like being the top of the chips or the bottom of the chips don't really matter. You're always going to find yourself in some spectrum of that position at all different given times. And so all you're doing when you show up over and over and over again is execute. And that's why a lot of these young guys are putting up massive results, right?
And sometimes you just get wrecked, like, call it for someone close to me, like David Coleman's had rough-ish years, never really won a live tournament until this year, has a bunch of thirds and fourths and like deep runs, but then this year, for whatever reason, nothing really changed in his game.
Exactly.
Won the Venetian tournament.
Brewer's another great
final
example.
tabled 4 straight in the kickoff.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay, this time, like this year, like it's picking you.
Yeah, and the media is like really awful about furthering these narratives, right? Because like nothing, I mean, look, something probably changed for Brewer. Obviously, he like had to step away from the game briefly, and like, the variance was actually getting to him. But at the end of the day, he's a really mathematical mind, and I doubt that his execution changed very much, right? He's still just employing the same strategy. Maybe he made a few tweaks here and there, and I'm never saying that like when you're losing, you shouldn't be examining your game and making tweaks along those lines. But what I am saying is like to imply that like it's all mental. To imply that like if I were just in a better state of mind, I would win more of these 60-40s is just like crazy to me. Now, don't get me wrong. If I was in Brewer's shoes, I would have walked away a long fucking time ago. Because taking a break would be the only thing that would keep me sane, right? It wouldn't be a matter of like, I'm afraid if I keep showing up, my win rate is going to continue to plummet. It would be more so that like, I would be afraid that I actually was doing something wrong and it was undiscovered to me at that point. So I would stop playing as a means to like be a tourniquet until I retooled my game and like crossed every T and dotted every I and made sure that like everything was in line of like, okay, I definitely know what I'm doing. I've taken some time away. I hit the fucking gym. And, you know, now after a month off, I'm going to try the next series and I'm going to get my face kicked in again because it's a tournament. And that's how they fucking work. You know, it's like it's a lot of losing.
I mean, it became a running bit where every time Chris was all in, it was like you just stand up and walk away.
Yeah.
Like, oh, like you're done.
Until it wasn't.
And it's
then
like
they just started winning.
When it comes to the whole Daniel, like I'm going to play when I want to. And if that works, great. But I don't think it's that predicative on the results that he has. Like,
right.
Sure.
That's kind of my point.
It's going to help you play better. And maybe your ROI in a tournament increases slightly.
Yeah.
Or like you're winning, call it 7% instead of 5%.
Yeah.
But that's not this massive, you're not strategically overhauling anything.
Like Darren Elias has said the same thing though.
But
About
everybody who says this, I've said the same thing as well. But everybody who says this is rich and doesn't have to play.
Yeah.
None of us have to play.
Do you think that might be like the goal to get to then? Like where you can get to a point
You know
where
how
you
you
can
get
choose?
there?
By playing.
By fucking playing a lot.
Yeah, that's
So,
like
so now that what I'm saying is like now that Negreanu has played a lot,
Yeah.
like has he earned like he has a lot of
Absolutely.
money and to be able to say, hey, I think I'm at this point in my career
For sure.
where I can do XYZ.
For sure. Where it enters Delulu territory is when it gets projected out that is actually the preferred approach.
That's the key.
Right? That's the key to victory. That the only reason he had a losing year, or one of the major reasons why he had a losing year, is because he played a lot. Because what that actually implies is that you're a losing player. Like, oh man, I massively increased my volume this year and I had a down year. I never have down years. It's like, oh wait, maybe, you know, and I don't think Daniel's a losing player. But my point is like if Phil had said the same shit, we would drag him through the coals because like this white magic doesn't really exist.
Yeah.
You know, playing is a mandatory requirement of somebody who takes the game seriously and wants to earn money, whether it be as a side hustle or a full-blown career. But that being said, I agree with everybody's sentiments of you can burn yourself out. Burnout exists when you still have a lot left to learn, though, right? When you're not intimately knowledgeable about your strategy, about what you do really well, how you're earning. Like if you can't sit down at a table and see 7 opponents that you're up against and say, I have a reasonable general idea of how I'm making money from these players. And I have a reasonable idea of how I might be losing money to players that are better than me. You know, you're not going to always be the best player in a game. If you sit down and it's like, there's a world beater to your left and it's just like, okay, I know the areas that he's really sharp that I'm not so skilled in. So it's not even that I can avoid them. It's just I know I'm giving up win rate to him in those spots. And I have to accept that if I'm going to play with him, right? And maybe now that's something I want to train and get better at. But I just recognize like how money exchanges hands in any one given session or over large sample sizes. So if you don't know how you're taking money from the pool, then you certainly don't know your strategy very well. In which case, sure, time off is going to be great for you because all you're really trying to accrue is positive reinforcement emotionally every time you sit down at the table, which is exactly what's happening. If Daniel busts, he's still emotionally getting positive reinforcement because it was on his terms, right? He didn't have to play today. He wanted to play today. Things didn't go his way. That's okay.
Because I chose to play today.
I chose to play today. I know that things don't always go my way. And now I can just like fully reset and get back out there the next time I really want to be in the arena.
It's just the emotional hedge between I wanted to be here versus I have to be here.
Correct. Which I absolutely get that. Nobody wants this to be a 9 to 5. Nobody wants this to be a grind. We all chose
And
this.
you don't have to do it anymore.
If you're like a small stakes grind on the way, on the come up and on a limited bankroll and you don't have like other sources of income.
You have to earn
now
this freedom.
You have to like, you don't have the privilege to just go play on the weekends at night. Right. When the games are the best and they're the loosest, right? You have to play the afternoon games. You have to play during the week.
Got a reg battle.
Right. There's you just can't play like maybe those the really good games you make 10 big blinds an hour, but the really bad ones you make $3 an hour,
Yeah.
or three
big blinds,
an hour, but you can't afford not to play those games.
Right. Yeah.
So you have to like put the volume in.
Yeah. And like, yeah, you have to earn the freedom, and Daniel's earned every bit of the freedom.
For sure.
Like, he definitely does not have to play ever again for that matter.
30 some years, 40 years.
I just think
30 years.
I just think like the overall messaging of like, okay, this is my plan moving forward, and I have really high expectations. Those two things don't really align.
Right. I have such a high expectations to play 50 events and have this infinite ROI. It's like, yeah, when it works out, it works out. You look like a genius.
It's not even that. Like, if we just break it down mathematically, if Daniel on January 1 says, all right, look, here's my plan for the year. I'm going to play 50 events total. It's going to be the total buy-ins of these 50 events are going to be $3.5 million. I think that I have a positive ROI in all of these events that probably averages out to like 10%. So this year, I should make $3.85 million, right?
350,000.
Yeah, 350,000.
Cash for 3.8.
Yeah. So I should cash for 3.8 million, right? And then he just immediately goes, but I actually expect to make 10 million this year. Right? Like, that's where it would just be like, what are we talking about? Like, what are we talking about that you have just decided that these 50 events are going to yield a sun run? Because the truth of the matter is it's 50 events. Even if like, there's just no predictive measure. If you have a 10% ROI over those 50 events, you might lose 2.5 million. You might win 10 million like you suspect you will. But the point is that picking either one of those numbers on the graph are meaningless. They're just as meaningless as actually picking your true win rate, which may be 10%, and saying, like, I think I'm going to cash for 3.8 million, because it's 50 fucking tournaments. It just doesn't matter. He could go 0 for 50, literally, and have done nothing wrong, right? And at the end of the year, he would maybe feel inclined to, like, write a blog post reflecting back on, like, why this was the worst year ever and we lost 3.5 million.
Worst year of my life. Might have just played the best poker he's ever
exactly
played.
And, like, that's the Brewer thing. Like, we shine a light on this because it's or we shine a very bright light on this because it's Daniel, right? And I think we all look up to him. I think his career has been, Hall of Fame worthy times 10. But at some point we made a shift, and this comes full circle to how we initially got into this topic of, like, we made a shift from not really having vision over anything and just having to believe what we believe, like, where we were just like almost in like some weird poker religion, right? Where it's just like, well, I'm a good poker player, so, like, the world is my oyster and my win rate is limitless. And truly, this is how we thought in the early 2000s, right? Money was free.
Yeah.
It was more true then than it is now.
It was more true, but, like, we were delusional, bro. Like, I thought I could make 100 million playing poker in a couple of years.
Yeah,
time.
That's nuts to me.
Right. Of course it is, because it's ridiculous. Like, maybe in my lifetime I'll make that if I play for 50 years. Even that.
Besides, like, call it marketing or whatever.
Yeah, and even that is, like, pretty fucking nuts, right?
Yeah,
so
how many people from your generation have 8 figures?
3, 4 maybe. And, like, that's an insane number. For there to even be one is crazy, right? But, there's the whole networking thing, and, like, they've fallen to money, whatever. It doesn't really matter. But anyway, like, we were all delusional, but it's because what were you comparing it to? We didn't have any math. We didn't know what true win rates were. We couldn't even begin to estimate.
You didn't have variance calcs. You just had your ego.
Right. And, it evolved gradually. We started to understand what reasonable hourlies were in, like, the early 2010s, what reasonable ROIs might be. But even then, we thought they were, like, 100%, 200%, 300%, something like that, right? Now we're at 2024, and it's just like, all right, look, if you're winning and you're really good, you're going to make a doctor's salary. If you're playing big enough stakes and you're really good at what you do. If you are really good at what you do and you don't play big stakes, you're going to make a government worker's salary, a post office worker's salary, something along those lines, something good, and you're going to have a lot of freedom attached to it. But, like, the dream of being a professional poker player is akin to being a professional athlete is just, like, fucking dead,
That was a thing?
Bro,
I mean,
we thought we were making bank.
No. I mean, like, back
point.
then, like, being a professional poker player was like one of those athlete level.
I can very honestly
comparisons.
say that, like, early to mid 2000s, I would have put Daniel in the exact same category as, like,
Tom Brady.
Not
I
that,
mean, sure,
not,
you hated him.
Not to that degree, but, like, a high level athlete. right? Like not the most elite of any sport because those guys were already clearing like 9 figures.
Yeah.
Or,
But you just meant in popularity,
eight
right?
figures, yeah.
Like
not just popularity, but potential earn.
Oh, just
It was
money
like,
too.
Do I think Daniel Negreanu in like 2008, if you had asked me, do I think Daniel Negreanu is going to make 100 million in his life? It's like, fuck yes. And he probably did, right? But now in 2022, do I think or 2024 rather, do I think Jason Kuhn has a path to make 100 million? Maybe, but not directly through poker, right? And if it is, it's because of like very select access to
like
stakes that are just like like maybe like 20K, 40K Hong Kong dollars or something like that.
One
just
house, two house, red house,
yeah,
blue
exactly,
house.
exactly. So it's just like, you know, it's changed a lot. The landscape has shifted very far off. So
has it changed in that way, or is it just more public when it comes to the action selling and things on those lines? Like people played not on their own dollar for higher stakes stuff way back when.
I think there were more degenerates for sure.
You think more just people just had all of themselves and
yeah, I think
now
there are a lot of stories of. I think there are a lot of Chino Reams from back in the day.
it's like ran it up, ran it down.
Yeah,
Like when we played
Yeah,
tournaments,
notorious guys.
when we played tournaments, we would just like we'd always be on our own dime for the most part. I mean, I guess we'd sell a little bit, but like it wasn't, or we'd swap a little
and
bit.
we'd like include 10Ks. Like we'd
Yeah.
have like a 50K roll and we'd be like in a 10K with 100% of ourselves.
Yeah.
Like even if we satellited in, right? Even if we played like a 1500 to get in,
Right.
it was a $1,500 risk to us. We didn't even consider selling.
Right.
You know, we would swap. We would do dumb swaps, man. We used to swap like 50%,
Yeah. Something crazy.
with just like each other.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's like, yeah, you want to do swap? It's like, yeah, half. It's like, yeah, cool. The fuck? It's insane.
Interesting. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I know that this may have come off a little bit like I was poo-pooing Daniel. I'm not. Like, again, like, bro, he's earned every bit of getting to do whatever he wants. The fact that he shares anything with us publicly is insane, in my opinion. He gives more to the community than pretty much anybody from that generation, for sure. But I do like think it's important to point out that there's actually no real correlation between results and a lack of volume.
Right.
It's
like
almost always just going to be a
it
luck
wouldn't be
factor.
a do as I say, not as I do type of thing here, where it's like if you really are on the grind, it's not about how good do you feel if you need to make money.
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of like want to point out that it's more anecdotal than anything. It's like feeling good is fucking great.
It does feel good to like show up and want to play.
Yeah, it's great.
Feels good to feel
everybody should strive for that. My argument is more so that you should strive to be able to do that at a higher volume. Because
It's like if you could do that every day, why wouldn't you?
right, because otherwise you're just all you're doing is like you're catering to your emotion at the cost of your wallet. And that's a weird hedge whenever you're playing a game for a living.
That's you make money off of if you just show up and play.
Yeah.
Where like how different is your A game going to be from your B game?
Well, a lot if you're not super mechanical. And I think that's Daniel's point.
He's saying he's not super mechanical.
I don't know if he is or not, but like I think of him similar to someone like me. We like to color.
More so attuned to the environment.
We're paying a lot of attention to the environment. We like to do fuck shit.
Yeah.
You know, we don't want to be hemmed in by the quote unquote rules of the solver.
You're not allowed to do that, Berk.
But I think the difference is that because like I'm constantly coaching and constantly training, I actually have to continually be reminded of what the quote unquote guardrails are.
Like that'll be my difference, like versus Daniel is my A game and B game are very close to each other.
Yeah, you're gonna miss a low frequency check raise.
Yeah.
Right, and you're gonna call it instead.
Where I
or
like
you're gonna
don't
size
bluff
incorrectly.
catch or I'm a pip off or something. It still feels bad.
The things that you scrutinize are complete afterthoughts to me. Yeah. Because like so much win rate is being exchanged in like pure nodes in my game for like infinite dollars. It's just way more important for me not to like show up with a hand that is supposed to mix fold and I'm pure calling. Right? Like that's the only thing that really matters to me. But like you scrutinize the game down to a level of like, well, when I have the spade here instead of the diamond, like I should be much more aggressive with my check raises. Like that's great. I understand. I don't care. It's not important to my bottom line.
Yeah, this actually happened in the 1K where I had a final 2 table spot and I was like, I think I can bet this hand because I blocked this hand, I unblocked this hand. And I have to like run HRC, get pre-flop ranges, and then you don't even know if he's playing them or not. You just have to make sure it can potentially work. Go to Pio, use ICM ranges, or use ICM rake, and then run the spot, get an answer, and then maybe you're right.
Yeah.
It's like, how much does this even matter?
For that one specific spot.
Right. And then
Yeah.
it's like, you know what if I give him a little bit more king queen here? And then the whole sim changes. And it's like, well, okay, now we're just playing the guessing game of if you think it's going to be the way you think
It makes you a better theorist, though.
Yeah, it makes you smarter.
Which I think is important. This will kind of dovetail into the conversation that we had today at the Academy. Like that. So it's funny because I think you and I are extremely polar opposite. The way that I theorize about the game, or quote unquote theory craft, if you will, is from a very top down approach. It's extremely broad, right? Like I see the pieces move in game and I just want to know like what can I do to disrupt that type of stuff, right? So if you're in a cash game, there are some mechanics that are just like pretty standard. You're going to have RFIs, you're going to have 3-bets, you're going to have 4-bet formations, right? And you just get accustomed to these formations, you get accustomed to the sizings and stuff like that. And my version of theory crafting is like, okay, well, what if we screw with the mechanics a little bit? Like that's the first variable that we can fuck with. What if we make our sizes smaller or bigger? How then will that yield different reactions? And then you start to understand the game like with SPR and range versus range. You know, you start to think like, okay, well, if I go smaller here, maybe this portion of his range doesn't fold. If I go larger here, maybe this portion of his range doesn't fold and it's torching money by continuing, like that type of stuff. And you just kind of like work your way down from the top level until finally, when it's all said and done, you're like, well, let me test it. And then you open a sim. Finally, after like all of this thinking and, you know, moving big pieces in your head, then you finally open a sim and you say, okay, I'm going to look at this formation. It's a 3-bet formation. He has this range. I have this range. What happens in theory? Okay, there's the baseline. Now, what happens if I alter his sizing to this or my sizing to that or his range this way? And then, you know, we trim and we prune and we see the difference in the responses. And now all of a sudden you become a little bit better of a practitioner, because you understand exactly how it's supposed to move in theory, but you've also seen like 4 or 5 derivatives of what can happen if the variables shift. And now you can extrapolate that to in-game. I think you work the exact opposite. I think you work precisely backwards, where you look at a spot, and correct me if I'm wrong at any point, but you look at a spot, so it's like 3-bet spot, his range, my range. Okay, let me put that to memory bank. Like, okay, these are the boundaries of the ranges. Got it. Okay, board texture. What's the sizing scheme? Okay, the available sizes here are small or overbet. Got it. Which portion of his range goes small? Got it. Which portion of his range goes overbet? Got it. What's my reaction to either? Okay, got it. Now, what can I pull out of that is a heuristic, right? Why did this portion of his range go small? Well, if I look at his range and when he goes small, and then I look at the reaction of my range, and I notice that these sort of hands struggle and become a little bit indifferent, I realize that that's the target. So the heuristic here is that he makes ace king mad, right? Like that type of thing. And then you extrapolate that out. And now your extrapolation is actually at the heuristic level, right? My extrapolation is at the practical level, where I land on the heuristics from like thinking about the game big picture, and then I test it as much as I can. Right, I try to break my assumptions as much as I can through testing, and then whenever they don't break, I say, okay, that's a heuristic I can count on, and through the extrapolation, I can just apply that heuristic even if we fuck with the variables. And I think that you kind of do the opposite, where it's like, okay, we're gonna make everything constant, and there will be no variables, and then we're gonna pull a heuristic out of that, and I can apply that broadly over a bunch of different spots.
For cash, it's more so that way. For like tournament strategy, you call it like ICM, like guidelines. It's the latter. It's your version where it's like, okay, I fucked up spots like at the FT I played where it's like, oh, I don't know if I'm allowed to limp here. I don't think I should play pure RFI. You run the spot, you realize it's 1 versus 2 in chips. You're like, oh, okay, you can put pressure on this guy because he's second. Mm-hmm. Now, how would that change if I put the short stack in the big blind? Do you still get to play jams or limps? And then you test it. And now you say, okay, because he's shorter, there's less pressure, so I can play limps.
So that's super fascinating because I've just always been this way, because I obviously came from a time where we didn't have the machine to rely on. You were kind of introduced differently. You were almost introduced through the sim.
I got better through the sim.
Yeah. Yeah, you may have an introduction to the game prior, but like the way you actually took the game seriously.
I played poker for a year without the solve, and then I played poker for a year with. I still won at like micros, the 10-20 on global without it, but then I moved up in stakes faster with it. Like that's when I started working with Jeremiah.
Right. So that's when you became serious. Like you actually became serious about studying.
I became serious about having a way to study versus just asking
Correct.
my coach and saying, oh, that I played this hand and he told me what he thought.
Right, correct. Okay, so for me, it's always just been one way because the tools weren't accessible. When the tools became accessible, they became a welcomed addition, right, to either confirm or deny previous presumptions. Deep stack cache is very similar with ICM in the regards that we just struggle with the tools that are currently available to get solid answers. 100 big blind cache, pretty solvable, right? Chip EV stage of the tournament, pretty solvable, right? So your method makes a lot of sense there, and that's mostly the things that you have been playing up until about a year and a half ago. So it makes a lot of sense to me that your methodology has changed because you're entering uncharted waters that don't really offer such clean solutions. You can't really plug the variables as being constants anymore.
Yeah.
Right. You can't count on the formations as being consistent. You can't count on the stack variations being consistent. It's literally every individual spot is almost like an organic, living, breathing thing.
Yeah, every spot's new. We're like first in chips when you have 5 big blinds versus 50 is a completely different scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Where if you try to implement the 50 big blind, like covering versus 1 to 2 versus 5, you're probably making mistakes in a lot of places.
Right. So I find that interesting because today the question was posed to us during the academy of, what would you suggest we do to go about further study? Like, how do you guys go about studying? And, Matt kind of gave his answer, and it was his own individual stuff was a lot more of the mechanics aspect of it, but he gave a really great answer of, I don't think in 2024 it's possible to get ahead without some sort of brain trust, right? So creating some sort of study group where you're able to bounce ideas off of one another, theory craft off of one another, stress test each other's notions, and not take anything as being concrete is really the only way to become better at thinking about the game. And I think that's ultimately the end goal rather than being better at mechanically executing the game. And most people, I think, miss that. Right. Mm-hmm. I think the majority of the people out there, whenever they sign up to a training site or they get GTO Wizard or what have you, they're strictly trying to figure out a mechanic that will correct for the areas that they feel uncomfortable in game. I keep getting 3-bet when I have ace king out of position, and sometimes I 4-bet and I miss and I don't win. Sometimes I just call and I miss and I don't win. Sometimes I make a king and I don't stack them because like they just fold, whatever the case may be. I don't know what to do in this particular spot. So they go to Wizard and they run a bunch of sims and then you just see like, oh, I'm just supposed to fight harder with ace king, right? So they develop a mechanic for that. Mm-hmm. And they basically just say like, okay, well, now I have it implanted in my head. I'm just never giving up when I have ace king. Right? Like I'm just going to find a way to be all in more often with ace king, whether it's jamming pre or it's, barreling off post, whatever the case may be. But they just develop a mechanic. And granted, this isn't as simple as like open 3x instead of 2x. Like it's a more crafted mechanic in the sense of like, okay, well, you have to be, conditioned to the board textures and you have to be able to execute some level of strategy. But the point is that people are looking for the simple version, right? They're looking for the simple mechanic of, can I range bet? They're looking for the simple mechanic of a guide to check raising, right? They're looking for the simple things that will tell them like what allows or what types of hands are allowed to stack off when the SPR is 10 versus 5, et cetera, et cetera. And those mechanics are out there. They certainly exist. But all they're doing is becoming better at one little tiny iota of the game that will pop up in game sometimes, and maybe they can even extrapolate some other mechanics off of, but they never actually really get to a point of having a complete strategy because there's nothing driving this mechanic, right? It's just simply, I've seen this done and I know that it works, therefore I execute. I think getting better at thinking about the game is ultimately why we even derive solve for why to begin with. And when it comes to study heuristics, I think that that's ultimately the goal. So like first and foremost, the notion of creating a group is heavily incentivized and incredibly critical. I think secondly, this notion of like a top-down approach for somebody who's starting from scratch, I think is second to none, because much like deep stack cache is very unstudied to a degree where we're still learning a lot of stuff, and the same about ICM. For somebody who's relatively new to poker, that holds true for everything. they don't just come into it with predetermined understanding of how heads up play works just because it's relatively solved, right? They don't come in with a downloaded strategy for 100 big blind 6 max, no ante, because it's relatively solved. You have to work into that. And the best way to be able to be versatile and work your way into most environments and be able to be a sharp thinking theoretical player is to start with this top-down approach and just start asking really big questions that you're looking to get the answers to, right? So it's like, what drives decisions in poker? EV, right? Well, how do I measure EV? I'm not a solver. I can't calculate this in real time. It's like, no, you can't. But there are certain variables we can pluck out of the EV equation that we can put a lot of weight to. Things like position, that's worth something. Things like range advantage, that's worth something. Things like SPR, that's worth something. We can break that down a little bit further. Nut advantage, equity advantage, EV advantage, right? Then we break that down a little bit further. Range on range interaction. Now all of a sudden we're going from the macro to the meso. And eventually, once we start asking ourselves certain questions, we introduce tools. And tools now take us to the micro level where we start to explore. And from exploring, we start to extrapolate. And once we extrapolate things, we test. We test by running drills, right? So if you looked at a formation of button versus big blind single raise pot, and you've explored, that range versus range interaction on a bunch of different board textures, and now all of a sudden you want to extrapolate that out and say like, okay, well, what about cutoff versus big blind? What about hijack versus big blind? I think that I can play those spots based off of knowing button versus big blind. Let me test that. And now you just drill, right? You just know that how the ranges have gotten wider or tighter. You know how your range should shift a little bit. And then you just start to see where you make errors. Because that's where you're going to learn the most is whatever differentiates hijack versus big blind and button versus big blind. It would be the error rate, right? It's like, oh man, that's a B40 when I'm hijack because my range is a little bit tighter and his range is so wide that I can get more value concentrated by betting bigger. But when I'm the button, my range is really wide, but I still want to c-bet with range. So it's like B25 in that spot, right? You start to pull that out. Now you have a heuristic. That to me, I know this is a very long-winded rant and I know it was meant to be much more inclusive. I apologize.
I like it.
But like that to me is what is missing on the open market. And, a lot of this is just being spawned off of kind of having a bit of a wake-up call come January where it's like, what are we doing with this company? It's like, I love what we do, but at some point
this has turned into a bigger conversation.
Well, it's just like, no, it's not. I know what we're doing, but it's like at some point I put it on autopilot where it's like, okay, well, we're going to run 5 academies a year. We're going to put out 12 courses a year. We're going to put out 3 seasons of Poker Out Loud and 3 seasons of On Second Thought every year. And that's just like it for eternity, I guess. Right. And the problem with that is that you take your eye off the ball, right? Like, we forgot about who we're ultimately serving and how much things have shifted for that collection, right? Like we are a live focused training site, period. And for such a long period of time, we've tried to serve everybody where it's like, yeah, but like, theory crafting is important and we understand how to use these tools now. So like we need to hit that middle. We need to hit the hybrid. Let's serve the hybrid. It's like, we don't need to serve the hybrid, right? Because they already have a strategy. If you're playing online and you're winning, you have a strategy, right? You're already in the micro. Landon will serve you very well, but the rest of us are probably much more better served to get those blank slates that are, playing 1-2, 2-3, 3-5, 5-5, 5-10, whatever. And they've just been grinding for a long period of time without very much direction. Because with them, we could start at the top and we can just say like, okay, here are your heuristics. Now let's dig in. Let's put in some work and let's get you down to the level of being able to look at the micro and actually extrapolate. And you're a perfect example of this, Brian. Like,
yeah, for sure.
How far you've come in like 18 months?
It's incredible. Like it's like you talk about getting a group, right? And that's kind of what we did with the podcast. Like I've started hanging around with you guys a lot more. We talk about poker, whether it's on the podcast, before, after, and now it's like, yeah, I definitely like when we first started this, I hadn't played poker a lot, and I didn't dive into theory. I didn't look at range charts. I didn't look at anything, right? And it just like, it started with that. It started with all this macro stuff, learning about range advantage, learning about SPR, learning about, these different, how positions interact. And then I started like building a strategy out. And my game now compared to like 2022 is wildly different.
Right. And people don't have the perspective that I have of knowing that from 2003 to 2012, you weren't only a winning player, but like you were more than supporting yourself. Like you had plenty of 6-figure bankrolls throughout that course of time. And then obviously the game evolved and shifted, and your desire to kind of like put in the work that was necessary, it fell off.
For sure.
Right? Like you were happier at the small stakes until eventually like you got eaten. And, you know, you became the manager.
Right, exactly.
And now you're a goddamn killer wreck.
Yeah,
right?
That's what you want to be, right?
That's the dream,
that's the
baby.
dream, right? Yeah, exactly. Have a salary and, you know, play poker.
Yeah, that's why Negreanu doesn't have to show up every fucking day.
I don't know. I can spend 3 days at the academy, you know, just hanging out.
Right.
I don't have to go down and grind the jewel, but I'm going to be there on Thursday. I'm excited to play after these 3 days, man.
You might have like half the academy there with you. They love the jewel.
Oh, I know. Hey, it's great.
You've been very quiet, Nikki.
Oh, I've just been, I like listening. I mean, I think that I agree with Brian about having a group, like listening to you guys, even just in the chat when you guys post a hand history and hearing like higher level brains talk about something that they've studied for a long time and like much longer than me. I feel like that's the time where you soak it up. I do think that you guys serve the live cash or MTT, but you serve the live crowd, right? And I do think a problem or maybe an issue that a lot of them have is that I've noticed just from talking to various people in the academy and then also at my tables and stuff is it seems like nobody. The part that excites people about poker is like the big pots, the post flop, the la 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 la, and people don't really like to go and constantly repeat the fundamentals, like repetition of like really nailing like the pre-flop stuff and it's eye-opening to watch, like especially today in a learning environment like we did. I audited the academy earlier today, and the pre-flop stuff, I feel like it needs to be fixed first, right? But so many people just want to work on the post-flop stuff.
This is how I learned. Like when I started learning, like I went literally like in chronological order of how a hand works. So I learned how to like what's pre-flop supposed to look like, right?
Yeah.
What hands open? What hands 3-bet? What hands call 3-bets? What hands call raises?
And
what hands 4-bet? Position. All So like once you get that down, it just that part just makes life so much easier, right? And then it's like, okay, now I get to the flop with this range and against this range. And then here's these different board textures, all these board textures that can come out. All right, what kind of bet sizings do I use on these board textures? Which kind of bet sizing do I use on here? And then the turn, what do I look for? Like when this turn comes, how do I react? So, and then you go to the river, right? So it's just like you learn like chronologically, but if you don't start with the pre-flop stuff, then you're going to be lost.
Yeah.
So.
And I think like the repetition part, people want to be like, okay, I got it. And then they, on to the next, the more complicated part.
So many different formations that can happen.
And they never go back to pre-flop or even think that they're even making mistakes in pre-flop because they're just like, no, I moved past that. Like I got that in month 1.
Right.
Yeah.
I think your point's very well stated. People forget, like for us, when I was coming up, it was never about the big stuff, the big pots or anything like that. Like it was about how much money can I just win through blind C bets. Right, like how wide can I get pre if I know that when I c-bet and they don't have top pair, I win. Right,
yeah.
And that was literally the challenge. It was like, can I make $300 an hour playing a strategy where I'm just like opening 50% of hands and then c-betting range for for like third pot or half pot or whatever, and just garnering like 90% folds.
And there's some people that still play like that.
Right.
Because they literally like some of this stuff would work, right? So like, you would literally just auto c-bet. You would just, if you opened, you would c-bet, right? Because people folded way too
Lamanna's
much.
nickname when we used to play the Pittsburgh Underground games was Flop-O-Matic. Because he c-bet every flop, and these old men didn't realize what was going on. They just knew he c-bet every time. They go, Flop-O-Matic, he always fucking got something.
He's just like, oh, he always hits the flop. He's betting every flop, right? So they would just fold, and I would just win infinite. Right. And but like So a lot of people started playing like that. It was just like, well, you have to c-bet. If you raise pre-flop, then you just continuation bet. That's the thing you do. But eventually people understood how to like combat that wide c-bet range, and you just get torched now if you don't adjust. And people who don't study or haven't studied, and been playing since 2006 still play that way.
I think the people that aren't
They're all at the jewel.
aware of how theory actually works, in the sense of not even a defensive strategy, but unexploitable. It's just the iterations of other people, like other bots, taking advantage of imbalances.
Yeah.
Right? People c-bet too much. Okay, you check raise too much. Okay,
Right.
they check raise too much. Now you raise too much.
Right.
And this is how you get to this baseline.
Right, which is what slowly has happened through the evolution live. Right, we've just gone through like a lot of iterations,
people will say
very
like,
slow.
Oh, GTO doesn't work at the small stakes, or like that kind of stuff. It's just like, well, like, yeah, because if you're taking like, oh, well, this hand should do this and this hand should do this, and it's probably because you're looking at like what the GTO response is to a GTO action. Right. But like, once you node lock it and you say, well, they do this, and you're like, well, look at all the exploits.
Yeah.
Right. And look at all the ways that you can garner so much more EV by doing this, but you don't know that unless you look at the
Well,
set.
like I guess a good example from Academy today was talking about like the ace deuce deuce rainbow board, where it seems like on first glance like, oh, like the opener has an ace, so there should c-bet a lot. And in reality, it's not a range bet board, but the check raises that do come in need to happen pretty frequently. But if the check raises don't come in, how bad can it be to just put in a big blind and see what happens?
Correct. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Like you're right. That's the iterations happening in real time, right? If they never check raise, then suddenly we get the range bet again.
Yeah.
You just come full circle. Nikki, I think you have a hand today from the Academy that you may have played. Might have even put your little happy ass in the muck.
Oh my goodness, yes. This mouse is jumpy, but Okay, so I'm really good at cutting things off early.
That's okay.
So yeah, we were doing the Academy today, and I actually got to do gameplay with that. And we had a hand that I think Berkey, you have on.
Yes, I do.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Can you not see?
Oh, I can't. No. Do you want me to start narrating?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. For the audio listeners,
so
Nikki.
it folds around. Okay, we have ace 10 offsuit in the small blind. I have ace of clubs, 10 of diamonds. It folds around to the button. The button opens to 25. We're playing 5-10. Okay, so the button opens to 25, so 2.5x, and I raise from the small blind to 105 doll hairs. The
Correct.
button calls, and we go to a flop. It's queen 3 deuce, 2 diamonds, queen of diamonds, 3 of diamonds. We do have the 10 of diamonds, but these kind of boards, this is exactly where I get stuck, because
Stuck in the muck.
I get stuck in the muck because we're in a 3-bet pot. The button's range is wide, and also since I'm in the small blind and it's a button open, like my 3-betting range is a little bit wider. And so I get, I'm like, well, he definitely has queens in his range. Do I c-bet this? Do I c-bet range? I don't know what to do. And when I don't know what to do, I default to checking. So I check and he checks back.
Okay.
Another diamond falls on the turn. This is the 7 of diamonds. And now I'm like, well, I have a diamond and he didn't do anything when I checked to him. So I probably have the best hand right now. So I'll bet, but the flush just got there. So I'm going to bet on the smaller side. I don't know what to do theoretically. So I just, I bet small. I bet 75. I guess that's like about a third a pot, and
A third a pot.
He checks his cards, and then he calls.
Okay.
The river is another diamond. It's the 5 of diamonds, and I actually at this part of the hand,
This part of the story.
this part of the hand, I actually grabbed chips to bet with and then shuffled them and then put it back and checked. Because I thought about if I was to bet, one, what would my size be? And then what if he like jams on me, or what if he like a 10 is not a high enough diamond that I felt confident calling a jam to or a large raise to. So then I ended up checking with the intent to call whatever he bets.
Okay.
Because now he can't jam on me. It's a ridiculous. That would be like a really big overpot jam. So I felt like I could call off pretty much any bet size that he makes.
Okay.
And so he bets 125 and I call a snap call, and then he goes, I have a diamond, and he ends up having pocket eights with the 8 of diamonds. I turn over my hand, we have the winner, but I don't feel good about the way I played it at all.
Okay. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
What in particular has you in the muck? I mean, I know you kind of divulged a little bit, but if you can pinpoint specifically, where do you think you first went awry?
Yeah, so I think the pre-flop play was fine because it's late position. He's button. I don't want to flat that hand. I don't want to fold that hand, and I don't want to. And so I have one more choice, which is to 3-bet it. I think that's pretty okay from the small blind to the button open. But then, yeah, post flop, I guess I just on an ace high board or a king high board, I have no problem c-betting because I feel like those are very clearly in the 3-betting range.
Coincidentally, I think ace 3 deuce would do a lot of checking.
That's fair. Okay.
I guess Landon can correct me if I'm wrong, but I would imagine you check about half the time on like ace 3 deuce.
Yeah, you don't range bet.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you don't range bet
like
queen.
weaker aces.
You don't range bet queen 2 deuce either.
Correct.
So I think
So then what about ace 10 off? I feel like that's the same kind of hand class as ace 3 suited.
So what I think, like the way I would like, so from my perspective, how I would think about this is I would think about what type of hands are in my 3-bet range, and then how do they interact with that board, right? So you have a lot of, I mean, you have all the
block ace 10 and diamonds.
Yeah. So you have ace 10 diamond, but you have aces, you have kings, you have queens, you have ace queen, right? You have king queen suited. Maybe you have king queen off? No.
Did you bet buttons
Pure.
Yeah, right.
It's almost pure.
Yeah, right. King queen
Yes,
off.
we do, Turtle.
Right, yeah. Okay, I said that, and I knew. I said we have king queen off, and I'm like, wait, do we? And
At the
Yeah.
jewel, maybe at the jewel we just flattened it a little.
I just wanted to make sure, Anyways, so you have like all these really good hands that probably want to bet that board, right? So that in my mind, it would lead me to wanting to bet more often than not.
And do you think the fact that I have a diamond in my hand makes me want to bet it a little bit more?
I would
not?
think yes.
Yeah, right.
Yes, because
Okay.
you can find ways to win when they have a better hand than you, like they did.
Yeah. So all those started going through my head, and then on the turn I was like, I should have bet flop because I blocked ace 10 of diamonds, but it was too late by that point. So yeah, I think that's where I kind of got in the muck, where I was like, I realized there's so many boards where I just check after 3-betting because if I'm out of position, because I'm like, well, I'm protecting my checking range, because I think I would check like a ace 3 suited or an ace 5 suited, or like a, top pair hand with like,
but to protect your checking range, you need to check good hands. Not like ace high.
I was talking about like if
right.
I was talking about
If it
if
was
it came
ace 3 deuce.
it was an ace high board. Sorry, I should have clarified that.
Right.
Yeah. So I feel like I'm like, it can't be too bad if I check here, but then a lot of the story doesn't make sense later.
Well, all right. So
The story can still make sense.
So I kind of said this to you downstairs. I hadn't looked at the spot, but I was pretty sure it like wasn't quite a range bet. But it's going to be a high frequency bet, because it's queen high disconnect, and that's just generally going to favor your range. You're going to have a lot of pocket pairs. You're going to have a lot of very strong ace highs. You're going to have a lot of queen X, right? So what I basically said is a simple rule of thumb in 3-bet pots is if you're unsure whether or not to c-bet, then you should just mix check in half pot. Like that's the quote unquote lazy approach, because depending on the stack depth, like depending on what the SPR is, you're either going to bet 40% in this spot or you're going to bet 67% in this spot, right? And you're going to do it with every hand that bets. You're going to play a single size. But since it's one of those spots where like you have a little bit less clarity, you could never really go wrong with half pot. And now you just need to figure out a way to parse between which hands you choose to check and which hands you choose to bet. I think having a diamond's a pretty good start.
I was going to say, so if you have like the ace 10 specifically off, the ones that contain diamonds, you bet. The ones that don't, you check.
I wouldn't go that far because like
too many checks.
No, it's not even that. It's that your checks become too weak, right? Because
like
you don't
what
always
happens when you face a stab. If you check.
Right. You want to have the ace of diamonds sometimes, especially if you're going to ever play check raise. You want to have the 10 of diamonds, particularly when you want to play check call.
You should play check raise sometimes.
Right. So it just, we start to peel apart the onion, right? Now all of a sudden this very simple question of like, should I have bet or not on the flop becomes, well, it depends. And here are 20 other reasons that you should be considering, right? You should be considering your check raising range, your check calling range, your betting range, your bet calling range whenever he raises and stuff like that. So it's not simple, right? You're right to have that feeling of I'm not sure what to do here.
Or let's say it's
like what would you have done if he bet the flop? Do you know, or you
I would continue. Well, it depends on the bet size, I guess.
Yeah,
like,
he just went like half.
If it's half, I would continue.
Half on queen 3 deuce.
Well, I'm just saying because that's what people do.
It is what people do, but that's not obviously the proper size.
That's not the proper size. I'm not saying it is. Right. But I'm saying what you're gonna face most often is a half pot.
Yeah.
Like if you know you're facing half pot, you should check less.
Okay.
In general, right? With like now you could default to if I have a diamond, I bet. If I do not have a diamond, I check because you don't really need to be bluffing a ton with naked hands. You could just choose equitable hands instead. So like it's queen 3 deuce. You could just choose like ace 5 instead to check raise. Basically, like you don't want to check and then face too large of a size and now deny yourself a lot of equity.
Yeah, I think the bet comes infrequently as well because like when you 3-bet and then check, they like check back.
So you want to like basically block bet?
No.
Oh, okay.
You do if you're in position. If you're out of position, you want to go like if you're out of position, you want to probably go. It's 100 effective, right?
Yeah.
You want to go 3 or check.
Yeah. I want to stick to like what Nikki's strategy is.
Yeah,
right?
out of position, you just go like half. It's like 55, half, whatever.
Yeah.
Right. You can mix it, bet or check. It's gonna be fine, but it's not a range bet board.
Point is that it doesn't really matter what you do between betting and checking. What does matter is that you would have gotten the sizing right, which we're not sure if you would have or not.
I don't think I would have.
Right. So the fact that you defaulted to a check should also tell you that you're probably not supposed to bet quarter pot if you do bet, and that's a good heuristic to lean on.
What's the function of small?
Right. If there was a function to small, you would never check. Right. So just by the fact that like you had an urge to check your hand should just tell you that like if I change my mind suddenly in this moment, I shouldn't then bet 25%.
Right.
I should then bet like half or 67. Something like that.
Well, you want to make like eights indifferent, or make eights be like, well, I don't know.
They're not indifferent yet, but like you want to give them a hard time over multiple streets,
right?
Okay.
Knowing that a big bet's coming in on the turn. So.
Also, like if we know that we're mixing between checks and bets, we're probably not going to mix between check and small.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah.
I guess.
Right, it's like why would we choose to check or go small if we're going to break down our range? It's
by block bet, I guess when I say block bet, you're like 25%, which is like a small block bet, but
block is like 25
I
and
guess
under.
what I was more saying is like I bet so that I don't have to face a large bet.
That's never really a reason to bet.
Okay.
It's just more so that if you have hands that mix and you have some sort of like vision over your opponent's strategy where he takes like marginal hands and bets them for too big of a size, then you want to check a little bit more of your traps and you want to bet a little bit more of your equity, right? So like if you have ace queen, you want to check it a little bit more so that eights puts in the 2/3 pot, right? And if you have ace 10 with the ace of diamonds, you want to bet it a little bit more so that like eights is now mad facing the same size that he would have been happy to put in himself. Right, it's flipping the strategy, and we're talking like relatively exploitatively here, but we're also talking about a range of hands that every single candidate does both things. Right, every candidate in range either bets or checks at some frequency. So thinking about it more practically, as far as like what am I trying to accomplish, is, I think, a better heuristic to lean on, right?
Yeah.
And we're really only talking about in some sort of like weird live world where you can anticipate them to bet for too large of a size when you check. If we're talking theory land, you're only ever going to face quarter, and that's why so much of your range is happy to check.
I do think people kind of forget that you can make things mad on flop, and they try to do it on the turn.
Yeah, agreed.
Where it's like, okay, I'm going to start with a small bet to see what happens. Like if they raise, they might have a good hand, or if they call, they might have like a middling pair between. And then if the turn is something good for me, like a king, now I'm going to go for a bigger bet because now these pairs have to fold. When in reality, you can just make those hands be indifferent on flop and still fold the turn later.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the button range that calls the 3-bet is going to be a lot of pairs between the 3 and the queen that aren't just a queen. And if you get called, now it's more likely that they do have a queen.
Right. Yeah, I think that's all good points. So anyway, point is, you didn't flub up the flop.
Yeah, I did.
Well, maybe because you didn't have any intention, like it's just a scared check.
Right.
So I would say that is like the error.
It's a good name, fear check.
Yeah, is when we make a play out of fear, that becomes the error. But like, we can see that your exact hand, the 10 of diamonds does mostly bet.
They both do, right? Just ace 10 with a diamond, from what I can see.
Let's see. So this one pure bets. This one.
They're all pretty close.
They're pretty close. Like this one, you can see it checks like 10%.
That's what I said.
Something like that.
Tortoise got it right.
But yeah, Tortoise got it right. If you have diamond, bet your hand. But yeah, ace 10 in general mixes between bet and check. Anyway, moving on. He obviously has a clear bet with eights. I think 8 with a diamond. Actually, it does check back at a lot higher frequency. So it's 8 no diamond that actually does all the betting.
You need more protection.
Yeah, I guess that makes some sense.
Like you're
especially
betting
if
eights
she's
to get
supposed to be
ace 10
betting like her hands that possess a diamond. That makes a lot more sense.
He's betting a quarter pot. Is it just like a higher frequency?
It's because
He's in position.
Okay.
Right, it's
nice, Matt.
It's a range advantage board for you, and you chose to check. So he can never like say like, oh, she's really bad at poker. When she checks, she just has nothing. So I'm going to bet large because A, that's incongruent, and B, that's also not true. So if it were true, he would still want to bet small because it would mean that he's just giving a tough time to all of your bad hands. But B, it's also just not true. You're going to check hands that are happy to check call that are good hands, like maybe 9s, maybe 10s, things like that.
Maybe queens.
Right. So like betting big just doesn't really ever accomplish anything for him. Yeah. I'm surprised to see that his actual hand checks back, but it does make a lot of sense to me why it does.
Like
so,
you can still realize on turn.
You don't want to, like you get check raised.
Right.
Getting check raised is fine, right? Because you have a diamond.
Yeah.
But that's why you check raise 8s, no diamond. Where if you get check raised, you're like, whatever.
If you get check raised, you're saying you're calling a check raise.
You have to call check raise with 8s with a diamond. You have too much equity.
Oh.
Yeah. Like folding would be a red card.
Super torch.
Yeah. That's why I wouldn't bet, because I'd probably end up folding to the check raise. I'm like, I don't want to fold to a check raise.
I'm not entirely sure, but I would bet that you probably also call 8s with no diamond.
It's probably mixes. I would say folds mixes.
Nope.
Folds.
Nope, you're right. It's the one with the diamonds.
Yeah.
The ones without just pure
You,
folds.
you can make a flush.
See how conditioned you like we are to like our environment. No, because like I'd be like, well, if they check raise, they just are so nutted.
That's what I've been yelling at you guys about.
Right.
Right? It's like I saw a guy bet middle pair and then get check raise and just snap fold, and he had almost 60% equity in the hand.
Yeah.
Just like, you can't do this.
Right.
Okay, so we arrive at the turn 7 of diamonds, and I think your actual framework of logic here is reasonable, but I think the problem is you don't recognize how much more polarizing your betting range becomes here.
Yeah.
Right? Because like basically you're playing the game of like flush, no flush. Actually, that's not true. You're playing the game of like big pair 1 diamond or better, or just like hands that complement big pair 1 diamond and flushes. So it would be like your ace 5 would be a good bluff, right? So like ace 5 of spades is going to be a good bluff candidate. That's going to complement aces. You're going to play like big bet with like, you know, the nut flush. You're going to play big bet with ace of diamonds, king, right? Those are going to be like your equity range. You're going to play big bet with aces. So like your range that you carve out that needs to bet is actually incredibly polar. It's going to be sets, flushes, nut flush draws, and then like really low equity hands like ace 5, no diamond, something like that, right? Like straight draw with an over that could potentially barrel twice. because you need some bluffs on 4 flushes, right? So like ace 5 of spades would be that. All this stuff that falls in the middle, like if you have, pocket jacks, you don't really want to bet. You have second pair to the board. Maybe you have a flush draw, but like he could just have a better flush draw. He could just have a queen that he checked back. Like no real need to bet that hand. And there's a lot of hands in those hand classes: jacks, 10s, 9s, 8s. All of these hands kind of fill in there. A lot of your queen X that may have checked. So it's really no surprise that we see ace 10 just plays pure check, right? It doesn't really serve to be a part of the bluffing portion because it's not value betting, and it's not really getting better to fold. Right? Like, what are you attacking? Ace, jack, no diamond?
Yeah, I guess like pocket 4s or something.
Pairs are calling.
Mm-hmm. At that point, they got to call. Yeah.
Right? Like, more specifically for the size that you chose. Pairs have to call.
Right, that's true, yes.
Right? Because you just decided to go pretty small.
Yeah.
Whereas
I would say this was a panic bet. I just was like, I have a diamond. He checked back flop. I'm gonna panic.
So we're starting to see a trend.
Yeah. This is definitely an in the muck hand. Like I was in the muck. I don't have any rhyme or reason or understanding of heuristic involved with this particular line.
I think like very specifically, what's easily identifiable to me is that what puts you in the muck is that you have a hand that's on the cusp.
Yes.
It's the bottom of your ace X offsuit that 3 bets, right?
Yes.
It's like middle of the range when it comes to your showdown value. It has just enough equity because it possesses a diamond. So it has like all of these properties to it that make you feel really icky no matter what you choose to do.
Yeah.
And the uncomfortable thing about No Limit Hold'em is that's a lot of where we make our money.
You nailed it. It's because it's bottom of range. Like I would have just folded ace 9 off pre-flop.
Right.
Like I had no problem.
Well, let's not go that far.
Well,
Maybe we call.
I don't know. It depends, but
okay, go on.
No problem.
Yeah.
No
problem.
No problem.
But yeah, I guess.
But yeah, like you're trying to navigate a hand that doesn't have a clear decision, right? Because like aces have a very clear decision post.
Yeah.
Where it's like even if you fear FC check, it doesn't matter. You have aces. Right? Like you'll just do whatever you want to do with aces. If he bets, you're going to raise or call. You're never going to fold.
Right.
If he checks back, like you're just going to find bets on the turn. And like, yeah, the size is going to be wrong because you're not necessarily thinking about the spot that well. But it doesn't matter because aces just make money.
Well, it just stems from uncertainty of action.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, I have this hand and now here's this board. I don't really know what to do and I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And here I am.
Yeah. And more importantly, we spoke about this a lot.
Again.
We spoke about this a lot in the academy. Your strategy is derived from what the top of your range wants to do. And in this particular spot, whether you were thinking about it or not, what you're ultimately saying is that you think the top of your range wants to bet a quarter pot.
Right. Yeah.
So when you put it that way,
when you break it down, yeah,
it seems
in
a little
the moment,
ridiculous, right?
I was like, I gotta bet something. I think.
Right, which is totally reasonable. But like if we think about it as like, what does the top of my range want to do?
Yeah.
It wants to get stacks in.
I also think that like in my head, when I looked at my cards, I was like, well, if this was the ace of diamonds, I would bet here. But since it's the 10 of diamonds, it's still a little too weak for me. But then I would float with it, I guess. I don't know. I just kind of just did not know what to do.
Yeah.
Well,
I
guess new strategic heuristic can just be when you have bottom ace X off on a flush draw board, you can just bet when you have the flush draw card.
Okay.
Like ace of diamonds.
And it doesn't matter if it's the kicker or the. What if it was ace 5 off and the 5? Or I wouldn't 3-bet that. Never mind.
Okay.
Never
Even
mind.
still, it would be more clear because you flop a gut shot.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Like if you have like ace wheel in that spot, you just hammer it.
Yeah.
Probably just go like GO3.
Yeah.
Turns not a diamond. It's like a clean. It's a 10. You just you bomb it because you have good. Mechanically, it's good to do so.
Okay.
Yeah, I can go back to the flop strategy, and you can just see that like
love ace wheels,
like ace 4 for a gut shot is just like 75% bet frequency.
You check when you have actual equity, like you have like see like ace 5 of hearts, ace 4, ace or hearts clubs go pure, but if you can check raise the other ones because they're good. So you bet them, but sometimes you can check raise because you have a backdoor flush draw.
Like the ace 5 backdoor doesn't bet.
So you just take the ones that you don't have extra equity and just try to rifle it.
Yeah.
You probably bet the turn a lot with it too.
Yeah,
right. Like if you see bet flop, get called because you want to have bluffs on 4 flushes and still win with a straight.
I would imagine that you are correct.
Like you look at ace 5 of clubs.
I imagine the size probably goes down.
Yeah, small.
So see, now once we come through the betting line, now your inclination is correct. We don't need to go as big because we can play for stacks for smaller sizing.
Our flushes don't care about trying to get money in or not.
Right. It'll just naturally happen. So yeah, now you can see like the ace 4 starts to bet like 40%. And it's with the intention to, sometimes jam river, sometimes come through a block again. Just depends on the run out.
Spades aren't as good because you block ace X of spades backdoor.
Correct.
And ace 4 suited is it looks like almost all the suits
It's
except
pure.
for one.
Well, it's pure, yeah. Like ace 4 is a pure 3-bet pre.
Yeah.
And then flop, you want to bet pure because you have the gutter.
Mm-hmm.
And now, where else do you find your bluffs from on rivers?
Yep. Okay, so we arrive at the river through this manifested line that you pulled out of the vortex.
The Sedona or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And now you basically have the option between checking and betting as you've made your 10 high flush.
Yeah.
You ultimately elected to check, which is reasonable. You do check your range an awful lot. And the next closest hand we could look at that's a 10 high flush is pocket 10s because ace 10 doesn't really ever get here. It's supposed to pure check the turn. But 10s with the 10 of diamonds does get here. And it basically mixes between full pot and check. So you finding a check with the 10 of diamonds, very reasonable if you had the ace of spades, let's say, because it's only 10 of spades, 10 of diamonds that's mixing. Your other two are just pure pot size bets. So basically the issue is, and Brian pointed this out to you in the kitchen, is that if you check the 10 of diamonds, what ultimately happens is the 8 of diamonds checks back too often. And now you miss all that value.
Yeah.
But you still pay off the jack of diamonds when he chooses to bet it.
Yes.
Correct?
Yeah.
So instead, what we do is we just go for what our hand is worth, which is roughly pot, and we try to get called by all of his single diamonds.
You remember, you're allowed to bet fold.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So
It's
when he
like,
jams on you,
You
can
probably
just
may.
fold.
It's really
He's
hard for you to
probably
bet 100% pot and then him look at a hand like the 6 of diamonds and just decide to be all in, or whatever. Yeah, the 6 of diamonds, and just like be all in.
Uh-huh.
Right? He's just supposed to bluff catch with that hand,
Right.
or maybe fold, whatever.
That makes
I mean, you
Um,
probably just call. You have a 6 of diamonds in this.
Yeah, I agree. So you check.
In this odd node.
You check, and he is supposed to almost pure check, but the 8 of diamonds just ever so slightly works its way in there if he also has the 8 of hearts with it. So
Definitely doesn't if you're checking the 10
It's
of
like the
diamonds. though.
sliveriest of slivers.
yeah, it's just the tiniest little savior. But he's supposed to also bet full pot because, if it's good enough to bet for
He went
value.
quarter pot. He went custom.
He did go custom. He went third pot, actually.
Sure.
But
And he did say, I thought I was betting for value there.
Well, he was.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
third
so-
pot, he certainly is.
It's like thinking if I don't have a diamond, then I can't. Then I probably won't call anyway. So
yeah,
and that's like a
if we alter it,
but-
as you can see, if we alter it to third pot, now 8s with the diamond gets in there a lot more.
But you should still call sometimes without a diamond.
yeah, no,
Of
I
course,
have before.
of course.
It depends on the.
I've done it before.
I've done it and been right many times with like.
You ever turn queens into a bluff though?
Yeah, you can see like 9s with no diamond versus third pot is calling. All of your queen X versus third pot is pure calling.
Yeah.
Sometimes jamming, like queen 10 of spades actually jams.
Queen's such a good bluff.
Yeah, king queen pure bluff.
So good.
Weird place to pull it from, but pure bluff.
Yeah.
It's because you block queen X with the diamond hands, like
Right.
the nutted ones.
Yeah, exactly.
You block ace queen with a diamond.
Yeah, so very tricky spot, very
Nikki's scared.
custom spot.
Very custom.
I
like that
Custom bet.
euphemism.
well, it's a nice way
It's
of.
so custom.
It's a very polite way
Yes.
of putting that the wizard is a little upset with young Nikki.
Reject me, daddy.
Like and subscribe.
Reject me, Dad.
Oh man! All right, I don't know how that ended up just on a plain black screen, but even better
I'll
to be quite
explain to
honest.
you
Actually,
after.
I do know.
Okay,
I know
you know
precisely
why,
what
yeah.
happened. Yeah, that was fantastic. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. It was a little bit dense in strategy. I know I personally enjoyed going on my little tangents of sort. Nikki, thank you again as always for running the ship.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm
you're-
so good at it.
you're
you know?
quite
I'm
the
just
guapo
like,
replacement.
Like and subscribe, man.
If there's anybody watching this that hasn't liked, subscribed, and clicked the fucking bell by now, You're just an anarchist.
Yeah.
Like you clearly just refuse to conform to what we're begging you to do.
You missed the signs.
We need you.
We appreciate all of you guys for tuning in and day out. Thank you guys so much for being a part of the Only Friends family. We will be back again tomorrow for the final episode of the week. Is it the final episode? No.
What? No, tomorrow's
Tomorrow's Thursday. Fuck.
Yeah.
God.
You wish.
My
me out of
final
here.
episode
It's
of
because
the
usually
week.
Wednesdays are Strat Chat, and so you thought it was Thursday.
Well, every day Strat Chat this week.
Oh, that's true.
Right.
We're working it all in with the Academy.
I'm
anyway,
leaving you. Goodbye.
thank you guys so much. We're losing Landon. He's headed to Florida, so that seat's gonna free up, and
go home.
maybe one of you will get a lucky little invite here to the Salt. No, that's not happening. We'll see you guys tomorrow, 11 a.m. Pacific. Peace.
Bye.
Peace.